All right, welcome everyone. I want to thank you guys for joining us this morning. We're so excited to have you here in this live stream event that we're doing here for the first time following the Minnesota Prayer Breakfast. My name is Robb Breding. I'm going to be your host today. I'm the president and CEO of REV Advisory Group, and we're a consulting firm and a coaching firm here in Minneapolis. And maybe the best way to describe what we do is we work with business owners who maybe are a little frustrated or a little overwhelmed. They're needing some help to move over a hump, and we help them to get unstuck and to achieve their goals. And that's what we're all about. And we're very grateful to have a great panel here today to discuss the topic of leadership through adversity. And before we do that, we're going to I was supposed to have my host here with me, or my man on the street, Rob Hiller, who's going to jump in here in just a moment. But we'll skip over his introduction and we'll get right into the panel. I can see many of you are already jumping on board, and we'd like to see that chat stream filling up as we're waiting for Mr. Hiller. And with that, I guess I'll go ahead and introduce the format. So the format that we're going to be using today is a panel format. It's very, very simple. I'm just going to ask some questions of the panel, and they're going to answer them. And hopefully that will create a rich environment. We also will have some questions when Mr. Hiller joins us here from the prayer breakfast. So we'll take a few things maybe from the things that Ken Blanchard said, or from PJ's talk, or maybe from some of the other comments that were made, and to try to formulate those and pose those to the panel. And then we'll also be using the feed. And the feed that you guys see there on the right side of your screen, you can make comments. I can see them showing up already. Go ahead and make your comments in there, and we'll try to synthesize those into some questions also for the panel. So with that, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started and introduce our panel today. Okay. So first of all, and I'll turn on the screen here so you can see everybody. We're going to have with us, first of all, Steve Pontius. Steve, while building multiple businesses over the past 25 years, Steve has also been earning the respect as an out-of-the-box thinker. He is best known for co-founding Minute Clinic, and his current startup, HRAIQ, is seeking to disrupt the healthcare world again and improve the health of over 57 million Medicare recipients. Steve serves on many nonprofit boards, including Amplify Mission Network, when he and I first met back in 2007. Steve, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Rob. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. Next, we have Robb Ketterling. Robb is my pastor. He's the lead pastor of my home church, River Valley. In addition to having over 10,000 attenders each week at 9 campuses across the Twin Cities, the River Valley Network also strengthens hundreds of churches from around the country with worship, curriculum, and leadership resources. Robb has authored several books, including Change Before You Have to, Fix It, and Front Row Leadership. Thank you, Robb, for taking the time to be with us today.
Yeah, it's good to be with you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. All right, and also our next panelist is John Sheehan. John is the co-owner and COO of Rocco Restaurants Group, which owns and operates Doolittles Woodfire Grill, Porter Creek Hardwood Grill, and Rome Kitchen and Bar. John and his partners operate 8 restaurants employing over 750 workers prior to the recent pandemic. John's daughter, Lindsay, and my daughter, Haley, were best friends growing up. And as a result, John and I have developed a friendship that's lasted, I think it's over 20 years, John. Welcome.
Good morning, Rob. Great to see you today.
Yeah, nice to see you. I don't know, I've got a ding going there, but thank you so much. And so lastly but not leastly, Dave Mortensen. Dave is the president and co-founder of Esteem Brands. He leads a global collection of franchises. Many of these brands you might have heard of. Anytime Fitness, Waxing the City, The Bar Method, and Basecamp Fitness. His heartfelt practice of emotional intelligence has earned Dave a reputation amongst his coworkers and through the entire fitness industry as a thoughtful and generous leader. I will not go into it here, but Dave and I go back to the 1980s, okay, where we both attended high school together and then later became good friends while attending Northwest Bible College in my hometown of Minot. I want to thank you, David, for being here and taking the time. Thank you, brother.
Rob, it's my pleasure. I look forward to being here with all of you.
Yeah, well, very well. Well, we're going to wait for our man on the street to jump in, but until then, I've prepared some questions for you guys, and we're coming off the heels of this prayer breakfast, and our world is in the middle of this unprecedented, craziness, right? And we're also coming together this morning to talk about a topic of leadership through adversity. I just thought that was timely, and that people would enjoy and be encouraged from hearing from leaders like you guys, who your respective sectors have been impacted greatly. And I also know that you're all very optimistic, very strong leaders. And so this first question is for all of you. And John, since you're in the upper left of my screen, why don't we go? You'll have you start off. But the question is this: given the context that I just described, can each of you tell us how your faith has impacted your approach to leadership in the past, and how it has come into play in these specific circumstances we're facing right now?
Well, thank you, Rob. Yes, I would say that, during this event crisis, the whole virus event, faith has been tested certainly throughout this. There's being in the restaurant industry, we all saw it coming from across the pond, if you will, from Europe and Asia, and knowing that it was going to have an impact here, and in the back of our minds, knowing that this could absolutely shut down our world. As it was coming across, and we were doing everything we could prepare for this, incredible uncertainty was surrounded through this event. How long will we be open? Can we stay open? Will we need to close? And many, many questions of uncertainty, and through it all, it became pretty clear from the beginning that there would be a lot of questions and many different paths to go on this, but God has prepared us many, many times for different things. And I think more than ever, it's time to trust in the Lord, to have faith that He has prepared us the best He can for this, that this will be a challenge for us. And through that preparation and through His hand, we're going to find a way out of this and make the best that we can out of it. So it's been quite a ride, and there's a lot left to it for us in the restaurant industry and hospitality, but God has been there for us in the past, and I'm quite confident He's with us now.
Right. Dave, you want to share?
Yeah, I would love to, Rob. I've been commonly known to be a person who leads with a word called love. And it's a word that's so underutilized in the business world, but I believe in leadership, it's a must. God's love and the way He's filled my heart over the years and continues to guide and support me has helped me lead in a way that is gives a presence of safety, a presence of comfort. And as we know in COVID today and what's been going on, we've had to make tough decisions as leaders. We've had to let comrades go or lay off or go into furloughs. And these are tough decisions and times that we've had to make. But if you lead with love and God's guidance, it's amazing how we can work through the adversities and show that there's a positive end on the other side. Listen, what God teaches us each and every day, we have to understand that these are lessons. They're not lessons of what He's provided. It's the lessons we learn through these adversities and the guidance that He gives amongst us. And if we continue to lead with that guidance as God guides us, it becomes prevalent in everyday interactions with the people that we serve.
Thank you, David. Yeah. Amen. Steve?
For me, what has continued to, I think in situations like this, you think about what comes to your heart and what comes to your mind. And the term that has continually been put upon me through prayer time and through reflection is uncertainty. And in uncertain times, as a leader, part of the problem with being a leader is a lot of people want to be a leader until you're the leader, because, and I tell this story all the time, you don't get to turn to your left and say, hey, what should we do? Everyone looks to you and says, okay, here's the problem. What do you want to do? And you have to make that decision. And so in the startup world, for example, you don't have any of the answers. You have to, as a team, figure those out. And as the leader of that, you have to be positive, and you have to be able to share your concerns and unknowns with somebody. For me, it has been my time of reflection with God, usually in the mornings, where I sit down and think about what are the choices and the challenges of the day and the week and the month ahead, so that when I'm with our team and our management team, we can talk specifically about what those answers are. And I can show my true colors of, I'm really afraid about this, or I'm really concerned about having to let people go or put people on furlough. How are we going to do that in a way that works for the employee and for the company as well? So I think the important thing here is, as we get into these situations, that you take extra time to spend with yourself and in prayer and reflection, to think about ways that you can be relaxed as you go into these days, because every day it changes, usually every hour or two, and you need to be able to be calm and make solid decisions as you go forward.
Yes, great. How about you, Mr. Ketterling, Pastor?
Yeah, for me, I've just been realizing that it's having peace in the midst of the storm. And then, at the start of COVID, everybody's like, who's going to die? How bad is this? And I had people saying, like, how sure are we about what we believe? And I'm like, we are sure. We are certain. So I had right now peace, and then my eternal peace. And then in the midst of that, I find that my daily peace has to be refilled. And like these other gentlemen, I sit there, the rules change daily. And I keep telling my team, I want to know what the rules are. If I know what the rules are, I can try to win the game, but I don't know what the rules are. And as soon as I figure, I feel like they're changing the game every day. And so I've had to say, all right, what can I fix? And I know this is the book I wrote, but it's been lived out day after day. It's like, what can I fix? What do they need to fix? And what does God need to fix? And I need to stay in my lane. And so I keep saying, like, all right, what do I need to fix? The other day, we're trying to figure out how to get churches reopened in a COVID world. So I'm like, I need to get on the phone, get a hold of my senators, get a hold of Governor Walz. We had that meeting. We're working. That's what I can do. And then I'm telling my team, here's what you can fix. You can take care of our congregation. You can take care of the poor and the food distribution. You do the things you can take care of. And then there's like, what does the president need to worry about, or the governor? And I need to stop obsessing about it, because I'm critiquing everyone else's leadership. And I'm like, go back to what God has called you to do, stay in your lane and get it done. And then as I do that, then I put the things in his category, God's category. God, you have to give peace. God, imagine this. I can't even go into the hospital in the beginning. We thought a member had COVID and they wouldn't let me in. And so I'm like, okay, God, you have to give comfort to that member that I can't even get into. So I've had to put things in the right category and then stay in my lane, adapt. Our big word around our church is pivot. We are pivoting daily to the next thing. And so if I didn't have that peace of God, I think the frustrations would spill out into every area of my life. So my thing is just that peace. I can't imagine how people are doing this without the peace of God.
All right, so that's great. Thank you guys for sharing that. And one of the things that I always say is that where there's more to us than just our minds, right, or just what we can apply. That we have a soul and we have a body, and we need to take care of all three of these things. And one of the things is a segue into Blanchard's talk, and maybe this is a question that you guys could answer. Is he talked about when we think that we're greater than we should be, or when we think that we're less than we should be. Both of those are problems, right? Like our pride on the one side and the lack of confidence on the other. The question, I guess, and Rob Hiller, I'm so sorry, our technology here, we're not able to get him to ask this question. I'm hoping this is one that he might have asked in this section here around to try to draw out of the prayer breakfast is, how has that played out for you personally? And looking for a little transparency here. Those times when maybe we've gotten a little prideful or we're lacking confidence, and how did you get through that? And Dave, why don't you start this one?
Yeah, I'd love to, Rob. Pride and I don't call it pride, I call it ego, and ego gets in the way every day with all of us, right? We've been put in positions of leadership, and at times we tend to believe, and Rob, you did a great job of explaining how we get out of our lanes really quick as leaders, because we do believe sometimes we are the fix-it-to-all. And it's amazing how sometimes we allow our egos to get in our own way and don't become the humble selves. And for me, it's been leading with vulnerability over the years and really understanding, showing candor and being able to show my own personal mistakes to allow others to show their mistakes. And during this adversity and time, we have to check our egos in place. And it's been, I'll say through this COVID time, even Rob, it's been even more interesting to watch people really show their true selves, because you are on calls and you've got your cat jumping on your computer and you got kids running behind you in the midst of trying to do things through the businesses or what you are currently serving. And you've had to learn what I call perspective and self-perspective on where you are in life. And I'll tell you, it's been amazing how that can happen. But even worse, some people who are living in that half glass empty, where all they're seeing is the adversity and the challenges, and I call it the barriers or the roadblocks ahead of us. And we as leaders have to help not only build it ourselves. And I'll tell you, when COVID first happened, we went from, in December, being the first organization franchise system across the globe to be on all 7 continents, and we were celebrating in Antarctica and just having this amazing trip. You can imagine, in the midst of March, by April 1st, I was the first franchise to close in all 7 continents. So you can imagine how I was just humbled by that and sat there going, what the heck just happened in our world? So being able to reflect back, and we talked about God, but reflect back into your own soul and go, why was I brought here? What is my purpose? And be able to drive forward and lift that back up, and then be able to help drive and thrive with others that surround you is something that's just an embracing moment in life. And it's humiliating at the same time.
Yeah. Anybody want to add anything?
I'll jump in. I think all of us who have started organizations, if you're not humbled, you will be humbled very quickly. I think it's very easy to think in our current, I can just speak for what we're currently doing, there's a huge potential of customers, over 57 million of them. Chances are we're going to do well really quick. Well, it's been 5 years and we're still climbing up the mountain. And it is because the path is different. The vision of the path of where we think we're going to go and what really ends up happening changes, because it changes. COVID or not, it just changes, because our view might be different than the customer's view or the client's view, or something may happen like a pandemic. I mean, I think it's really humbling to sit back and say, I'm not that good. I'm hardworking and I try, and I think persistence is what wins here. I think we would all agree that at the end of this, who's ever left standing is going to win. Define win however you want. The fact of the matter is you got to figure out how to get to the end. And I think, to Rob's point, when the rules change all the time, you sit back and go, okay, I'm going down this path now because this will get me to the end, and then it changes because something happens, and then you got to revamp and go again. So being nimble and being able to look at your people and say, I don't know. I don't have the answer, guys. We're going to have to work together to figure this out. And if we hit a roadblock, then we're going to have to agree that we need to turn left. I think being nimble is super, super important. And I think being totally humble, because nobody has the answers. Our leaders don't have the answers. If you've watched any of those press conferences, they change daily or weekly. So you don't get the rules to the game. And if you do, the rules are ripped up and then you got to start over again. So it's super, super hard. And because we don't have that, being able to admit that to your team helps tremendously to allow them to speak their own minds. And I think, I think David's piece was great. If you're honest with your team will be honest with you. And that's shortcomings and successes and everything in between.
Amen to that. The more transparent we are, the more likely it is that we're going to get some good creative stuff from our team, and teamwork will happen. Anybody else want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, I would jump in a little bit on it to just agree with both David and Steve. You know, the uncertainty of it all was absolutely prevalent through, back into January, as well as we saw this come across the ocean. As I said before, we jumped into jumping off of David's point of coming into 2020 with great vision, so to speak, coming on what we were going to accomplish this year. And lo and behold, that all went down the tank pretty quick. As it came to fruition, there was many, many questions of what was going on. And as everybody has stated, there were no rules, there's no playbook, there's no manual for this. It was pretty humbling just to be able to say, I don't know what we're going to do just yet. I don't know when this is going to end. I don't know how long this will last. Many employees asking questions about, are we going to lose our jobs? What happens if we do shut down? Do we come back? And I think it was really important to be able to, at a time like this, to stop and pause and use that time of reflection. Tell your team, our leadership team, that right now I don't know. What are we going to do together? And a lot of positives came out of it. A lot of great ideas from a team. Much like we had just stated amongst the group here, what we decided on Friday was old news on Monday, because a lot of this was happening so darn fast. And I think going forward, that's exactly right. And I think, Steve, you've brought up a great point. The key to the future is let's get through one day at a time. Let's be around tomorrow, because I think, as you said, depending upon how you define winning, I really think survival through this, there's going to be some real positives that come out of this. We just need to be prepared for it.
These guys have had great answers, and I just can't help but jump in. They were so good. Two things. We've laughed about James chapter 4, where he says, why do you boast about tomorrow? Like, you don't even know what's going to happen. You should say, if the Lord wills, we'll do this. And that's kind of been like, we had a 25th anniversary set for Minneapolis Convention Center. We were going to have 18,000 people. And I'm going to frame that invite card because it's not happening. And so we've just been like, okay, look at you, Mr. Big Leader, making your plans. You don't control anything. And I'm like, I got to humble myself and remind myself I'm making my plans, but this world is bigger. God's bigger. I thought I controlled my destiny, and I control my attitude. I control my responses. I control a lot of things. I can have vision, but ultimately I've got to take it down a notch and humble myself. And then for those that aren't thinking much of themselves, I've had to go to some staff and some people in the church like, come on, stir up the gift that's in you. There's more in you. Don't be defeated. So some of us in leadership are having to remember not in charge, ultimately. And then those of us that are on our teams, I'm pushing like, come on, do not develop bad habits in this lockdown. Stay sharp, stay strong, stir up what's in you and make something happen that you can. Control this little bit, but do it, go. So both sides of it for me.
Great. That's great. Great discussion. And we'll stay on this theme of kind of personal leadership here for a moment before we move into some other things. But I wanted to ask you guys, as we've been dealing with this pandemic, in you personally and in your organization. Can you share how the crisis has revealed or elevated key leadership attributes and skills necessary to function in the kind of uncertainty this crisis brought? Now, you guys have already touched on a few, but let's just expand on that a little bit about, what's kind of risen to the top is important. I've heard humility, I've heard tenacity. What are some others? Steve, maybe you want to kick us off on this one?
Sure. For us, our business model is going to Medicare patients' homes and performing services for them there. So when COVID hit, we're done. Our business model doesn't work. That's so you can't risk the health of the patient nor the clinician that is there. So immediately we had to make a 90-degree turn to how do we then continue to see. So things that came to the forefront were we went straight into telehealth, and we dove in immediately with telehealth and video health. How do we do that operationally? How do we do that? How do we gear our people? Those kind of things. So being able to have vision of what's coming and being able to change quickly, adopting to what the rules are today and knowing those aren't necessarily the rules for tomorrow. So being able to be flexible about how you're doing it, because I think across the board, if we sat down, and we could probably spend 3 hours talking about what do you think the changes that are going to come when the pandemic's over, in all aspects, in healthcare, in food delivery, in are we ever going to shake hands again? When is the next time you're going to feel comfortable getting on a flight or going to a game or a concert? I think there's all kinds of things that are just still out there. So being able to be flexible and being able to change, and most of all, I think, Rob has gone into this a little bit. It's kind of pushing your people to think differently, right? If you're, our operations guy, our tech guy went from a guy who monitors kind of how the internet works to that to you got to figure out video and you got 48 hours. So figure out what we need to do, what equipment we have to get, how do we have to set that up. And what's great about that is your employees, when forced, because of something like this, it challenges them to think differently and expands their ability to help. And then they grow confidence going, wow, I actually did that. And those kind of pieces are what drive organizations to grow quicker and stronger, because people get asked to do other things. And when they get there, they realize that they have more ability than they have. So I think it's kind of a long laundry list of where you go.
Great.
I can definitely jump in here, Rob. I've got 3 areas that I've seen just kind of transform during this time that I think many of us are leaning on, but have we put light to it? The one that we're all receiving is the one we see right now. It's the level of communication that's going across our networks that is so beautiful today, because we're learning muscles that naturally we thought we had to have. We all believed the only way to get something done for years was we need face-to-face time. I've got to be face-to-face with them, and we have to have that interconnectivity. And we're finding, communication is a lot more than that personal face time. It's actually these muscles we're learning better, and it's called listening. It's called just sitting back and absorbing the information that's coming in and taking the time to really hear out the person that's to your right and to your left, and then being able to communicate that back out and make sure that the network is well understood of what's going on. So our ability to bring communication to our organization is so important. The second wasn't what is, and I talked a little bit about it, was really learning perspective or perception in individual lives. We're sitting here today and we're all in our homes or wherever we are having our times. And it's funny how many times many of us, especially in leader positions, where I may be on a call with a franchisee who's looking at me going, Dave, I don't know how I'm going to make it tomorrow. and coaching through that. And these are tough conversations we're having. I can't imagine what Rob K might be having in conversations, or Steve or John. All of us are having these individual moments with people in our lives. And then we'll walk downstairs, and with 5 kids, I've got 2 of them fighting about who's going to do the dishes. Now, at one point, you as a parent want to look at them and say, are you joking me? This is what you're arguing about? Or you're worried about not being able to go to prom? Come on, are you kidding me? But at that moment in time, you learn perspective, and you learn, you know what, you have to meet people where they are in their journey. And this is being a learned muscle. So all of a sudden, you have a deeper level of empathy for people that has just been beautifully shown. And I think that's something that we're a muscle that is really starting to grow within us, because we are being forced to see it in so many variations sitting in our own home. And then the third thing is really personal responsibility is coming to light. It is so beautiful, because so many times when we're in big teams, we mask ourselves with others around us, and we forget what it's like to have personal responsibility in the roles that we serve. But when you are at home and you have a task and you have things you have to be accountable for, you become very personally responsible for them. And you know what? No longer can you lean onto the left or the right, which is a beautiful capability of having, but having the personal responsibility to take ownership in things is bringing a light. I think our teams today are more productive than they've been in years in this trial and times. And I'll bet most good leaders are saying the same thing, that, wow, I just am amazed with how my team has stepped up. And that's because we're seeing personal responsibility from each individual that's involved in your organization. So just some reflective things that I've noticed.
Good. Anybody want to add to those folks?
Yeah, I would jump in as well, and I think Steve touched on it a little bit, but especially in our business, in restaurants, adaptability has been absolutely key. As we have gone through this event, and we're still in it, we elected to shut down 8 of our restaurants and go into hibernation. Scary time, lots of questions. How will we maintain what will it'll look like when we come out of this? And even in the shutdown, but now as we are starting to start up these restaurants this week, for starting with takeout and then into our dining rooms and patios as it is, the adaptability of all the management team has never been more necessary than now. Even look at this meeting. This will be my first time on a Microsoft Net meeting. We've implemented Zoom. So much working at home as we've done more than ever in the past, and I think that makes perfect sense. As a restaurant company, we operate in our restaurants, but obviously the game's changing quite a lot for us. You know, the emphasis on takeout has been huge, not only from the curbside service, but the software programs that are going into that to make that more accessible, getting the communication out to all 750 employees, as the case would be, or the 70 managers, including them, so everybody feels connected to what's going on, and they have a place to come once we are able to start this back up, which happens, like I said, to be this week. I think in a time of uncertainty, those who can adapt to what's going on around them and adapt quickly, I think makes a difference, not only in what it'll look like when we come out of this, but holding together the core people that helped you get to where you are.
Yeah, great.
So good. All these are so good. I'm enjoying this. I'd love to go to lunch with all these guys when we're allowed to do that.
I know some restaurants we can go to.
Yeah, exactly. John can host us. Yeah.
Love them. So what we've learned is trust is the greatest currency right now. If I don't trust you, I can't work with you. If I can't work with you, we can't get anything done. And the lack of trust, like even answering these questions, how long are we going to be? 15, 5, 60 days, 6 months? Yeah, I mean, how many people would this affect? That number has changed. All this affects lack of trust. How about me, my business, my church? And so we found that trust has become our currency. And I had to tell my team the other day, second guess your second guessing. Take a negative, double guess it, so 2 negatives become a positive. I said, you got to give me the benefit of the doubt. You got to give leadership the benefit of the doubt. Without the currency of trust, we can't make it. And I found this, that we've said our yeses have to be yes, our no's have to be no. And then if we change, we've got to explain why we've changed. Okay, so that communication. Another thing we've said, you can't angle data, because we all have access to data. And if I'm using data for my advantage and you find out that, it breaks trust. And I think our political leaders are using data with angles. And I think they need to stop doing that. So trust. And then we've said, explain things, explain, don't blame. Like, I'm going to explain to you why I did this. I'm not trying to blame anybody, because I want to explain. And blaming isn't going to get us anywhere. Explaining will. And then the last thing on that is apologize. In the currency of trust, the apology is critical right now. I'm sorry, guys. We were planning to do this. That was my bad. We need to pick up the pieces here and move forward. If you act like there's nothing to see here, I didn't make a mistake, horrible leadership right now. When somebody apologizes, it shows that authenticity, it builds trust. And so we're saying, if you make a mistake, apologize, so that we can reconnect with trust and then solve the problem together. So that's what we've seen. Trust is the currency right now that we've got to trade on. And if we can't trade on trust, we're in big trouble.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, guys. Those are great. And I was thinking too, this, we're all, when there's no millennials on this panel today, right? A little bit older than that, and the autocratic style that maybe we grew up on doesn't function very well in this environment. I think I hear that kind of coming out as well, is we have to have an engaged team so that we're not worried, Rob, to your point about trust. What is that person doing and their kid, at their house today? Are they productive? It's really more about, are they engaged in such a way that they are feeling the same way I'm feeling about moving this organization forward. And I hear you guys saying that that's happening, and I think that's a testament to your organizations. That's not going to be true in every organization, and so the next question that I had was, now that we are seemingly entering a recovery, and John's mentioning opening restaurants, I am so excited, John, because I love to go out to eat, okay? It's one of my favorite things. And as we're going into what let's call it a recovery or an emergence from this craziness, how do you envision that changing? And what are some of the pitfalls that maybe you see as we transition now from this kind of lockdown state into an opening back up? And Rob, why don't you start us off on this one?
Yeah, I just met with the governor yesterday on a Zoom call, and we were talking about how we're going to worship again. And it's like we're a touchless worship experience, which just seems so foreign to me. I shake people's hands. I hug people that are hurting. We lay hands on people to pray for them. We hand them communion. And so we're trying to figure out, how will a touchless worship experience take place, but a together worship experience. We're talking about sanitizing. We're talking about just social distancing. So for us, we're trying to figure out all the ways that it's going to affect us, but we want to get back together. And then on top of that, we have people that don't believe this. They're like, it's not as bad. It's like the flu. And data would say that we're figuring out that a lot more people are infected. We might be able to get back to work quicker. Then I have people that are shut in, that will not leave their home, that are healthy, that are in their 20s, that are living in fear that they may die. So I have my mom, who's 77, who wants to hug everybody. And she's like, I'm not going to die afraid. She goes, if I get COVID, I'm fine I know where I'm going. I'm not dying afraid. And then I've got a 20-year-old. So all this is changing it right now. And I think we're going to have to phase through this. And I just want to know which phase we're in right now. I think we're in phase 5. There's 10 more to come. And what's going to be a problem is when people are still in phase 3 and other people are in phase 8, and the conflict that's going to happen. We'll have to figure out how that's going to work out.
Okay. Yeah. Good insight. What do other guys think?
I'll jump in and talk a little bit about healthcare. Healthcare in general has changed forever, right? I mean, and there are a million things that are going to happen, and I wish I knew them all now, but you just don't. For example, a good example is if there's 90 days before any doctors are really seeing patients in their practices, how are you going to fit all those in 6 months? Plus the people that were signed up for the 6 months, right? You're going to have a real problem of trying to prioritize who you see and who you don't. In our world, in the Medicare and senior populations, those are the population that are most susceptible to COVID-19. You're certainly not going to want those patients coming to the hospital or the clinic. So how do you care for them? I mean, those are just simple tasks of what does that look like? I think what we've proven is, and what we will continue to prove, that telehealth and video health work, and those horses are out of the barn, and you will see more and more of that. Certainly rurally, you'll see that. In the past, the CDC and Medicare have kind of been, we're not really sure about that and how good that is. I think the good part about what things like pandemics and the good that comes out of those is it forces us to rethink the way we do what we do. And so it offers opportunities if you're open to making changes and being flexible around what that is. So, how do you do that? And I think there's a whole bunch of changes that we'll see, certainly within healthcare. And how does it work? How do you if I walk every morning and I walk by an auto repair shop that you have to sit in your car and call them when you get into the parking lot. Is that how healthcare is going to work? Those are all kinds of real questions that we're going to have to figure out what social distancing, how that works as well. And it's just a really interesting time that I was telling, we've got 4 kids, and I was telling one of my sons the other day, you are going to tell your kids about what life was like before this, and they're going to go, wait a minute, you guys, what? Mm-hmm. You went to McDonald's and they had a playland? Like you ran around in that thing? That's what you guys did. I'm not sure that's what it is, but it'll be things like that we as older people have gone through. When it used to be this way, right? When you used to sit through a television show because you were too lazy to get up, and everyone would argue about who's going to get up and change the channel, for example. I mean, all of those are real, and those changes will actually be coming, and being able to have front end thought about what that is and how you can position yourself. In John's world, how does takeout work? Right? Because takeout's going to be a real thing going forward. At least my opinion of that is. Because we've proven that that's a good thing and it works and people will come. How do you do that? I don't know, but those are real questions that John and his team are going to have to ask. Robb as well, for how do you do touchless? And certainly the workout world is going to be different. I don't know what that means, but it's certainly going to be different. And so I think we all have to put our minds and our teams around, let's imagine a world that is X, and what does that look like? I don't think we have to have the answers today, but we at least have to be thinking about how we do that.
Great. Yeah, John, I want you to figure out how we can get the food to taste as good in my house as it does when I sit in your restaurant. For some reason, it just diminishes on the way home to me. So.
we will certainly put that on our task list. I think both Dave and Steve really touched on key points that are a sledgehammer in the face. We are in the hospitality business. We want you to come into our restaurants. That's what we do. We do 97% of our business in the restaurants, in our patios. It is a personal experience. I equate it to a lot of what having a service at church to be. How do you have a touchless service? We're going to invite you into our restaurants. We're going to be wearing a garbage bag, a gas mask, and welding gloves, and say, "Welcome to our restaurant." And it gives a total different feel for what their experience will be. So absolutely, we're having to reevaluate all those things, and it starts with our employees. How do you invite them back to work, and have a place that will be safe for them to work, that they have the confidence and the trust that you have their best interests at heart, so that we all can get through this together. The whole dining experience in our restaurants, in a touchless experience, we have plates, we have silverware, we have glassware. You cannot consume without touching any of those. And so the importance on sanitation, the importance on communication, the importance on making sure that we're doing everything we can to prevent any type of illness for anybody. And we've had to deal with that for years, obviously, but it has never, ever been to the level of scrutiny that we're looking at right now, and personally that we're committed to it as well. So the challenges to us are far greater than just the takeout. We can't survive without having our dining rooms open. We can't survive without having our patios open. We need those revenues and those revenue generators in order to maintain the current model. But clearly, we're going to have to change. Our takeout is not only being looked at as to what we can sell from what we have, but what other retail opportunities are there out there? What else can we include as value-added shopping at our restaurants in order to expand our footprint as well? So, yeah, it's without a doubt a challenge, and it's really changing the industry as it is. But I think those challenges are in front of us, and we've got a great team to get on top of that. So it'll be interesting to see how it comes.
John, I'm a firm believer that your restaurants are going to be full again. So let's be frank. There isn't a person sitting on this call that can't wait to get out and have some social time at a restaurant and enjoy the foods and enjoy the community and just doing something outside of their home. So, I believe the real question is this: how long are we going to live in fear? That is the question we have, but let's define what fear is. Fear is really simple. It's false evidence appearing real. That is truly what fear is. It's an acronym that everyone should understand, and they should write it down, and they should really start to deeply understand what false evidence are we seeing today that's becoming real in our lives today. And every one of our businesses and our social interactions are being impacted today. So the answer to everyone's question is none of us really know until the evidence of a reality comes forward, and it's slowly but surely going to happen, and we got to allow this to happen in phases. The exciting part in my industry is really simple. Exercise is more prevalent and more important than ever in people's lives, but it's more than just because of the workout. It's leaning us into a phase of thinking about our lives in all aspects of health. Right? So walking into a gym and actually bringing it to a more cleanlier environment, a more safer environment for consumers to come in and feel like they're a part of a healthy community versus just an exercise community gives me goosebumps to enhance. It's an opportunity we have not to just meet our consumers inside of our four walls of our businesses, but really connect with them outside of our four walls. So the ability for us to be able to deliver on these experiences, not just inside our business, but outside our business, has really enhanced across the fitness realm through live streaming, through social connecting, you name it. There's so many variables in the virtual world that we can bring fitness to people's lives outside the 2 hours they might spend it inside of a gym. In my hair removal business with Wax in the City personal care space, people can't wait to get back to that. That's back to that false evidence appearing real. You could read things right now that would be considered a medium risk business today because there is hand-to-hand relationship going on through waxing services, hair removal, laying the hands in church. all of these things today. What does that mean? But does that mean you can't lay hands with a glove on? Absolutely not, because the Spirit comes through everything. There's nothing that's going to hold that back. Same thing in delivering the services of your business. But we don't even know if that's false evidence yet. So this will be a phasal removal. And at some point when we move out of our fear phase, we're going to really find out what our new normals are. And I think there's going to be new changes inside of our businesses, but not to the impact that we're living in today, because right now all we see is the fear that's in front of us. So that'll change over time.
Wow, those were really good insights, you guys. I love the optimism in moving forward in this time of transition now into recovery. And one of the questions that I had asked folks to kind of let me know ahead of time, and I'm trying to look at the stream here, was this idea of the Stockholm Principle out of Collins' book, Good to Great, where he talks about this idea of dealing with the brutal facts, right, in reality. And I heard you guys saying that, and Steve's optimism of what are the opportunities that are there, so we can not from a business greed perspective, but a perspective of what is business in the business of doing? It's solving problems, and what are these problems that we can help solve in a different way? So thank you guys. That was really, really good. And I'm looking at the clock, and we are just about out of time. Let's just wrap up with not the question that I thought I would, but maybe a little bit different one. And that is, this comes out of the stream a little bit here. At REV, we talk about the whole leader, okay, mind, body, soul, which you guys all represent here. But we also talk about 4 dimensions of life. We talk about work, family, community, and ourselves. And I think I'll try to pose this in a question, but the question out of the feed was, how has this changed your perspective on those 4 dimensions of your people and yourself maybe, and those that you lead, and how you approach that in engaging them in your organization, in your business, or in your in your organization, to encompass and kind of be aware of and take care of all 4 of those areas. How has your perspective changed in those areas, or maybe how has it been and how is it changing? And we'll end with that question. And any of you can just grab on that one. I mean, we're all dealing with family stuff, right? That you didn't get to see before. You get to see that now.
I'll jump in. Here's what I'll say to those that have kids at home doing learning. I would really struggle with that. I think that is, God bless all of you for the patience that takes. In fact, I was telling my wife the other day, she said, so what do you think it would be like for you to be working at home and having the kids home doing learning? I said, well, I'd walk to St. Cloud and back every day. That would be my exercise for the day. I think that's really challenging. So God bless you all for all that you're doing there. For me, the interesting perspective of this is that what this has forced, I think, all of us to do is slow down. And when you slow down, you're able to process more information, right? Because now there aren't 700 emails and 14 calls, and we got to make 18 decisions today. Everything has slowed down just a little bit, and it allows you to reconnect with yourself and then reconnect with your team, reconnect with your family. And I think all of that slow down process is something that's, consultants get paid a lot of money because they can look at you and say, hey, you ought to try this. And you look at them like, that's the most brilliant thing I've ever heard. And the reason they can do that is they don't have all of the other stuff that's going on. How are we going to make the rent payment? Oh, we got to raise money. Oh, this client's unhappy. All of those things, they just get to focus on looking at the organization going, hey, maybe we ought to try it this way. And so what this time has provided for myself personally is really reflection time on how we're doing it. How am I managing? What are the things that we should be focused on? Our organization spends a whole lot of time talking about what we do matters, and it matters to everybody that we deal with, the patients specifically, our clients. So what are we doing to ensure that responsibility back? Instead of going, well, we have all these people we need to see, so let's just go see all the people. Let's make sure we're taking the time to do what we need to do to get the best information we can, because it depends on their quality of life going forward. Those are super important things that I think at times when you get so busy in the grind, you just go to the next thing. So
Yeah.
I would encourage everybody to just slow down and have reflection time on how you can do things differently.
That's great. That's great. All right. Well, we are about out of time. And so with that, I think I just want to thank you guys. What a great discussion. I am so blessed. I hope our audience is blessed as I am. And thank you, each one of you. I've asked Pastor Ketterling to do a little final word of encouragement. But thank you, David. Thank you, John. Thank you, Steve. You guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll be praying for your businesses and all of you, these employees and all these people that you lead. Thank you so much for being here today. And with, yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Rob.
Yep, have a great day. And so, Robb, Pastor Robb, I'm going to
Yes.
change the screen around here a little bit so that you can
Sure.
have full view. And I'm going to be in the middle of your face for 1 minute. But with that, I'm going to ask Pastor Robb just to close out our time together just with a word of encouragement and a prayer. After all, we are coming off the heels of the Minnesota Prayer Breakfast, and I can't think of a better way to end. And then I'll just say maybe one or two things after Robb's done. But thank you, Robb,
Sure.
if you would do that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say this, when I was thinking about this closing thought, I was reminded of 2 Corinthians chapter 1, where the Apostle Paul is saying, like, he was pressed beyond measure. And he's like, we even thought we had the sentence of death. Like, he thought he was going to die. And he said, but God delivered them. He was faithful. And he said in verse 10, he's like, he will continue to deliver us. And I've just lived that way. The struggle in my life makes me stronger. I may think I'm going to die. I may be pressed beyond what I thought I could handle, but God's going to get me through it. And the struggle is going to make me stronger. And so I just want to pray that over you right now, that whatever you're struggling with, it's going to make you stronger. And so, God, I just pray right now that you would help us to realize the struggle will make us stronger. We're going to come through the other side. You've been faithful before. You'll be faithful now. You are faithful. And so, God, I pray we'd remember that no matter what we're facing, whether it's physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, whatever it is, God, you are faithful. You will get us through. So we thank you for that. We give you the glory, the honor, and the praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor, for that. And with that, I'll say thank you to you as well. And you have a wonderful day. And so, folks, I just wanted to thank everyone for coming and being a part of this morning. Well, we had a great panel discussion. A couple of things in closing. We're going to record the discussion. It'll be available on our YouTube channel. And if you did register and didn't just jump in on the link, we'll actually send you that link in an email to you. Secondly, in that same email, if you are struggling right now, if you are having difficulties, if you do need some perspective or you just want a little bit of advice, Robb Hiller, who, I'm sorry, Robb, technology didn't allow us to have him on asking some questions today, but him and I both have decided we want to offer to anybody who's interested a 20-minute consult, whether that's just to talk to you or just to you can ask a question or just to someone to bounce an idea off of, or maybe just to pray. And Robb would like to, and I would like to make ourselves available for you for that, and we'll have that link also in that same email. And then finally, I'm going to put this up on the screen. This is our website. If for some reason you guys would like to, what do I got to do here? If anybody is interested in learning more about what we're up to and those things, there it is right there. You may contact us at our website or via phone. I'd love to talk to you. So for those of you who didn't register,